This week I'd like to introduce Graham Townsend. Graham, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Since we're recording this in the middle of COVID-19, the whole with dealing with a little one and a wife working from home and balancing it out. But otherwise good. How about yourself, Terry?
I can tell, and exactly that. That's why I think we're both needing a good haircut at some point soon.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest thing. My wife has had a go, but we'll leave it there.
I've been threatened with clippers, but I don't think I'm at that stage yet. But you never know, maybe a couple of weeks and then we're there. But yeah, Graham, could you give our listeners an insight into your background experience? Just a brief insight.
Sure. So I've been working within manufacturing now for over 14 years, mostly in technical roles around IT and so on. So my past 3 years have been specifically around manufacturing analytics. And before that, it was in the other technical area, action execution standardization, RP system standardization, and before that, technical architecture, and even earlier than that, from software development. So not really a manufacturing background, but I've been within manufacturing for a long time. So hopefully I'm not standing around asking engineers stupid questions now.
Good. And obviously the topic that we're going to discuss today is bottom-up approach to applying analytics within manufacturing. And that could be, large manufacturing organizations all the way down to small, and one thing that pops into my head, so we're starting off bottom-up approach, but why start from the bottom up?
And it's such a huge area, and to be fair, even though we're a $2 billion company, we're still, everything has to be kind of cost-driven and focused. And there's all kinds of things you need around specialists. Or on the surface, you need specialist hardware, big project. Every person we've come to from external companies has talked about very expensive software packages and so on. And for us, that just is a no deal. We need to. We want to start somewhere small, somewhere targeted. So we've got lots of stuff sitting around. We have very clever engineers and people with statistical backgrounds, various other backgrounds. For us, we thought we should be looking at what we can do to get started with what we have. They say data is the new oil. I don't want to just give all of that out to some third party to do what they have. That's potentially our IP, something we want to kind of own for ourselves. There are obviously skills gaps and something we have to address, and it's a huge subject. But we want to start with something small and tangible, so we could we could show that we have real benefits before we could actually kind of scale that up and give on there, because there's no way we get funding. Seemingly would go nowhere.
Yeah, okay. And I know we've kind of just jumped straight in there, and that was my fault. But give us an overview of the business you work for, and what they do.
Oh, of course, yes. So we're a American-based composite material manufacturer. So we mainly focus on aerospace. Okay. And we have got a wide range of manufacturing processes. So on one end, we make actual parts for aircraft, and on the very far end, we have chemical processes to kind of build some of those base materials. So we go from raw chemicals to processed materials such as carbon fiber and resin systems, through to composite materials where we combine those resin systems and fibers together to make a composite with different strengths. Yeah. And then that can go into different parts. At the different stages, we are buying materials in and out. And huge range of different material for our business. So we're very focused on the materials we have and the different properties they can have. And we're quite vertically integrated. So there's lots of different points we have and different levels of maturity in terms of what we can capture and what we can do with what we have.
Interesting. I used to work with a business actually in Scotland that does similar to a certain extent. One does chemical process where they use a resin to glue the product that they'll supply as a resin. Then another one did a cloth which was like bomb-proof. It's like fibres integrating anyway. I'm digressing and rambling. But coming back to to the topic, because that'll, that brings in your relevance, because you're actually breathing manufacturing, you're in manufacturing, So, if I'm a business leader within a manufacturing facility and I'm really interested in how analytics work and how I can use that to better the business, where would you start? Where would you begin?
So I would start this with some kind of tangible pain point we currently have. So usually for us, we would look at something in terms of where can we take cost out? That's normally the easiest place to look. So we'd look at how could we improve yield? Or where would we like to improve yield?
Yeah.
More accurately, where could we reduce the cost of a process? Where could we make it more stable? So we have all kinds of different quality parameters around our materials. So where could we make them more stable, or bump them up, or tweak them down, depending on as they would be? So we'd find there, and usually it's where we would go, wherever is our biggest problem right now. That's normally where people are going to be engaged and focused. So let's go pick one of those up. So that's normally where we're a key business problem to go after. In terms of actually taking that forward to something which into realm of data collection, we would then, around that problem, we get a group together, some people who know about the data that's there, so what data we have right now, and some people who have ideas on, ignoring what we know about the information, what might actually push that forward. So if you get a bunch of engineers together and researchers, depending on what you have in your business, they'll have ideas on how you could get yield up, how you could drive that, move that needle for that quality parameter. And if you get those down, what we've found really useful is to have that small group of people in the room for an hour or two, maybe, just go through and come up with different set of hypotheses, and then we rate them for along the lines of how likely they are to be true. Is this some wild idea which has a small, based on our scientific or gut feeling, is that quite likely to be the case? And how accessible is it to get that data? Is that something that's readily available? Is that hard? And ideally, we'd have a few hypotheses which are easy to get the data hold of and likely to be true, and then normally where we go start.
Do you feel as if it's important or the most important that collaboration in terms of integrating analytics within your manufacturing business, the collaboration of the people within the business is the most important part to start doing it?
Absolutely. If we without that collaboration, we would be nowhere. Okay. Because there's data science and analytics is a wonderful thing, but if you don't have that kind of initial bit technical understanding about your product, that's really where all the knowledge lies in the company today. And without that, you kind of shoot in the dark. We've worked with third-party companies outside, and the amount of time it takes to get, just like say, one contractor up to speed on how our business works and different stages, it's a long time. Really, we're much better on just keeping someone engaged who already knows that stuff, and we can kind of augment that with skills to kind of better analyze it and bring it in. So without that collaboration, you'd be trying to have one person or a separate team done everything, and that just doesn't work.
And have you had much experience? I'm just thinking outside the box now, totally. Because typically what you've got. So say for example, it's a very good, profitable business. Don't know, family owned, been going for 50 years, whatever. And what they've got is the second generation or third generation's taking over the business, and they've came. These, great drive, determination, wants to embrace technology, wants to embrace data and do all this good stuff to then take the business to the next level. Have you had much interaction with that type of business, or is that something you see any, is it less prominent? What's the...
So I've not worked with small businesses directly of that kind of size. I would say, because we have lots of plants individually and they'll make different products, and lots of them have been acquired, there's kind of a family culture in a lot of those. Come in, there's kind of established engineers who, we've been doing this for years, and some cases 2 generations. We know what we're doing. There's nothing technology can teach us. There's a kind of cultural thing to slowly work on there, and certainly in that, it's got to be, coming back to what I said before, it's got to be around some important business issue. If the business is running well and there's nothing that seems to need to be moved, it's very hard to get kind of something in there, because what's it going to do? If no one's really focused or passionate about moving it, then it needs a leader or a driver in that space. So if there's like some serious cost constraint, as in you've got competitors nearby and they're trying to push your costs down, you need to find a new way to take some money out to keep yourself profitable. Then you've got a pretty good driver there to focus on and work towards. So if that's there in a family business, I can see that working. But without that, it's why change for the sake of change? Yeah,
and you know, as a bad example, it's in the family business, given that, you know, it's more the smaller business and how they adapt to that change and how they would embrace it. You know, and you know, with regards to the benefits of using analytics, you know, what's the sort of overall benefits that a business leader could gain from bringing all the pieces together so they've got full view of how their business is performing, or spot the gaps of, you know, what is not performing?
It's usually the speed of getting that information. So if you don't have a proper collection and strategy in place, then getting an answer to a business question can take days, weeks. And often, even if you get an answer in weeks, if you're a larger company, you'll have multiple people involved in collecting that information, and they will kind of put their own spin on it. So you'll have one team will kind of spin it that one way to make it look better. Others will spin it another way to make it look a bit better. And a really good case around that is OEE, so overall equipment effectiveness. At least for us, it's meant to be a standard metric, but you know, depending on how you tweak the numbers, you can make yourself look fantastic with a few little adjustments. And unless you've got a consistent way of collecting that data that's been thought about, then you're not really comparing apples with apples.
No, it makes sense. And obviously we're touching on, you know, right at the start you mentioned, you know, where you would begin would be looking at one specific area. You know, if you've got various areas that you've looked at, you know, how do you go from, you know, a couple of different trails to something that's more robust and scalable, such as the business that you work with? Because you've obviously been on that journey. So how would somebody go from that?
So for us, we've gone through, when we go through several of these iterations, we start to see patterns emerging. So we like to keep doing the experiments because it keeps us learning kind of new information on there. But there's a 5 different areas that we tend to see. So the data collection strategy is a key one which I touched on. So we need to think about what we need to be collecting more systematically. And for us, because we have so many different stages to our manufacturing process, a really key thing for us is genealogy. What material went into what? If we don't have a good collection strategy around that at every stage, we can't link them up and we lose our visibility of what's going on. So pretty early on, that's a pretty clear thing. We need to have a good strategy in place for that. And you know, internally we have systems being put in to collect that systematically everywhere, so we can do that kind of that joining. Other areas are data processing. So how do we turn that into use models? So this is where a more technical area where we actually need to bring in skills, and maybe not consistently, but it's something that, you know, all the stuff around, do we need cloud technology or can we do it on premise, and various other different technical aspects we need to do. We need to pull that resource in, and we like to kind of work with a consultancy for a while and then learn internally, then we can kind of go on from ourselves from there. In between that is data integration, which again is, you know, you've got all this data collected, how do you integrate it and store it somewhere so it can be easily accessed? Tooling, are you just going to have dashboards for people to see and high up, or are you going to build this for engineers who like to tinker and look at different experiments? Do we want to have them be able to do this themselves? Is that the kind of thing we want to train up? Yeah. And the large thing is the general internal knowledge and skills. So do we want to have a dedicated team? We've generally steered away from having a dedicated team. We prefer to upskill people. Much better for an engineer in the process to know how to analyze something rather than to go to some centralized resource who doesn't know the process. But we found this kind of distributing those skills across is much better than trying to centralize it, because it just speeds the process up and keeps us going there nice and smoothly. And
we've went to the robust and scalability of that there, but let's bring it, just to close off, let's bring it back to, in hindsight, Graham, you've got a vast experience doing what you're doing within this business, and you've seen the pros and cons with that as well. Looking back, what would you say was your biggest challenge and obstacle that you faced, so that someone listening to this podcast can sort of, already think about it ahead of actually implementing or doing it?
So it kind of links back to what you said at the start, to be fair. It's managing expectations. So on one side, you might have someone who thinks that data analytics can solve everything magically, really easily. Just go do, and we'll get answers that will magically transform our business. And on the other end, there's engineering teams who are pretty focused, said, we know everything, there's nothing new that can be taught us. They're kind of two different things, and they have to be managed separately. We've been burnt a couple of times in the early days from external companies will come in and they'll say, just let us in for thing, we'll take 15% of your cost out. This just run it for our tool, it'll tell you everything. No, and that burned a few people. I'd never let someone like that in again. Needs to be like pretty clear focus stuff, because those kind of promises they never seem to hold up. Flip side, engineering teams, the biggest challenge and problem is a lot of this stuff turns out to be experimental, so you don't get it on the first go. You tend to learn something new, and the engineers, there's an expectation to say, once I've got some information, I can immediately go on to the solution. So engineers are there to solve problems. It's just, okay, I've got my data, go. And managing that and kind of say, well, this kind of says here there's a 40% possibility here, we should explore this, but the data isn't quite good enough. It's like, well, that's not good to me. It's like setting that expectation earlier up would have been better, I think, certainly from there. And especially where some of these, when you start getting into the analytics thing, some of them a bit black boxy and you can't quite tell what's in there. Again, set an expectation about what can be on there, what can be learnt. Again, people would feel much more comfortable for us to see a nice equation which says exactly what's going on. Send up the expectation of what comes out of that. So being burned by over promises from external tons as we're learning, and I guess damaging the trust by not setting expectations quite, and that it's not going to have an explicit answer necessarily straight away, not without a few iterations. So they're probably the biggest regrets, I would say.
Interesting, and it's I think just kind of summarising everything up, analytics can be used very effectively within any size of manufacturing, any sector. Doesn't matter what sector, size, as I said, it's irrelevant. It's about actually what your business does, and looking at the data that's within that, whether it be people, systems, processes, raw material output, anything at all, and actually looking at it all and having the black and white numbers to be able to make business decisions quicker and faster, and having the data on hand at your fingertips. But coming out the back of that, what can't be what can't be missed is the people, the collaboration within the business in terms of making sure that people are aware of why this is getting done, what value it has to the business, how it benefits that individual person as well in terms of their jobs. And people will be people, there'll be different personalities, different, and it's about actually the leaders within that business communicating effectively enough where people understand, which is going to benefit the business going forward, because what that leader has is the data at his fingertips, her fingertips, to make the right business decisions, to grow the business, and which is going to benefit everybody internally as well. Would it be right in saying that, Graham?
Yeah, I think you'd be right in saying that. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but everything comes down to people and communication, people talking the same language and being clear about what they're seeing at the end of the day. And so, yeah, if people aren't collaborating, if people aren't talking, if people aren't sharing their information, that knowledge, when does anything in business work if you can't do that?
Yeah, no, and it's spot on, and I really appreciate that input. Really good. I enjoyed that. Graham, if anyone wants to reach out to yourself, what would be, for anything at all, I don't know what it would be, but, it'd be a matter of getting a bit more insight, what would be the best way to reach out to yourself?
Sure, I'm always happy to chat and learn from other people as well. So best way is, I hopefully can be easily found on LinkedIn, but if not, via email. So it's literally graham.townsend@hexel.com or gmail.com if personal is preferred. Yeah. Either way, yeah, that's normally the easiest way for me.
Well, thank you very much, Graham. Really good insight. And that's us for this week's episode.